Hello there, Grateful Gang. My name is Lauren Blanchard-Zaleski. Welcome to Gratefully Living the Chronic Life. I come to you every Thursday at this time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we talk about various ways we can live our life with gratitude and intention despite our struggles. I am the admin of the group on Facebook, Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. So a lot of our audience live with the struggles of chronic pain and illness, but really any topic that we have is really designed to help us to bring gratitude and intention into our lives, no matter what your struggles are. And everybody struggles with something. I have an amazing guest tonight. I'm super excited. She's here. We have a month of gratitude. Gratitude is my favorite subject. And because in the U.S., November is the month of gratitude because of our Thanksgiving, I wanted to make sure every guest really embodied gratitude. And Gina Hamadey, author, is here with us tonight. She's written one of my favorite gratitude books of all time. And if you look behind me at this collection of gratitude books that I have, you will know I do not say that lightly. I love gratitude books, and this book is really something special. So I cannot wait to introduce her to you guys. A couple things first before I bring her on. I want to thank Dr. Farhana Sadek, who was on last week, Dr. Gratitude. She runs the Gratitude app, and we had a great hour with her last week. Thank you so much for being on. We'll have her on again soon. It's Gratitube, Tube app. It's a video gratitude journal app. So if you did not catch that episode, you can catch it on my YouTube channel or on my website. Next week, we have Dr. Fuchsia Sirwa is coming back. There she is. She's a gratitude researcher, research doctor out of the UK. And next week, she's coming back the week before Thanksgiving to talk about procrastination, professionalism, and chronic illness. She has a new book out talking about people with chronic illness and the role that perfectionism and procrastination play. So that's really exciting. I'm excited to have her back. Oh, my t-shirt. Those of you that watch every week, you know that I wear a different gratitude t-shirt every week. Besides gratitude books, I collect gratitude t-shirts. Somebody put this quote in the group Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain this week. It's a very famous quote. It says, "The struggle ends when gratitude begins." And when she posted it, I said I would wear this shirt for her and give her a shout out today. So see Jeanette Martin, if you are watching tonight, this t-shirt is for you. Exciting. Last week, I announced that my book is available for pre-order right behind me here. I'm shamelessly plugging the 5-Minute Gratitude Journal for Teen Boys is available. It is on pre-sale now. It will be released on November 30th through Rockbridge Press. Super excited about it. It's 120 days of prompts, gratitude challenges for designed specifically for teen boys, which there are none like that out there. So it's quite an honor to be a part of that project. So please place your pre-order. It's a great holiday gift, and you can find a link to buy that. It's on Amazon and anywhere books are sold, but a link to get your copy is in the description of the video here. And finally, tomorrow in the group in Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain, we have our new gratitude circle. It's 15 minutes, Fridays from 12 noon to 12:15 Eastern Standard Time. We do it on Zoom, and it is 15 minutes of expressing our gratitude or sitting there and soaking in everybody else's. So please join us. So without further ado, let me bring on our guest because I'm kind of geeking out that she's here. Gina Hamadey is here. Hey, Gina.
Hi. I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you for that lovely intro.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. She is the author of this wonderful book. Wonderful, wonderful. It's called I Want to Thank You, How a Year of Gratitude Can Bring Joy and Meaning in a Disconnected World. You've got your copy too. I told you the first time we met, I love the design of this cover. It's really, really sharp. It's a beautiful book to read. It's a beautiful gift too. Really nice quality book with great illustrations and just the contents are wonderful. So besides writing the book, you've had quite a career already. You've authored this. You authored another cookbook, right? Buenos Nachos.
Nachos, yeah. Different genre. Grateful for nachos, continue to be, but yeah, totally different.
You're a food writer, or you were a food writer, right?
Yeah, I was a food writer for a long time. I worked in magazines. I worked at Oprah Magazine right out of school. I interned at George Magazine, which some people still remember fondly, so I always mention it. And then I started Rachael Magazine, and my last magazine job was travel editor at Food and Wine. But it's been a while now. It's like I still feel like I just left, but that was now like 6-7 years ago that I've been, writing for myself, working for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I always tease those that watch the show every week. I always tease that Brene Brown is my best friend, even though she doesn't know it. But after reading your book and learning more about you, I think you might be my best friend and you don't know it.
Oh, yay.
Because not only do I love gratitude, I'm a big foodie as well. So a lot of the stuff you're talking about and pertaining to food, I'm like, ooh, like that's like my dream job too. And so yeah, you're my best friend and you will get to know it eventually.
Okay, great. I can't wait. Can't wait.
If you're tuning in for the first time, we are an interactive broadcast. We love to have guest comments and questions, and we will break on occasion. So we have a couple here to start us off with. Arlene's the one that our journaling club is doing a challenge based on this book, and she's running that for us. Hi, Arlene.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. That was really exciting to hear.
Yeah. So if you guys are in the journaling club and you're taking part in the Thank You Note Challenge this month, give us a shout out. If you're joining from in the group, you have to make sure you sign in. Otherwise, on my screen, you turn up as Facebook user. So hello, Facebook user, and another Facebook user. Jill Cook is here. Hello, Jill. Arlene's holding her copy too. Woohoo. Oh, speaking of copy, I'm glad we said that. So we're giving away a free signed copy of the book tonight. So if you are watching live and would like to win a copy, all you have to do is put in #gratitude. And at the end of the episode, we will do a drawing and you can win a copy of this beautiful book. So let's just dive right in. This book is you did a year of thank you notes, a thank you note basically for every day, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this year wasn't the year of the pandemic. It was the year right before the pandemic. Yes?
It was 2018. Yeah.
Oh, it was 2018. Okay.
Yeah, it was 2018. Yeah. So 2018 was what I called my thank you year. And then I pitched and wrote the book in 2019, finished it up in 2020, and it came out April 2021.
I love what you wrote in the beginning of the book. You're kind of wrapping up because you did this whole process of writing the thank you notes. And then you're in the intro, you start talking about like you were kind of summing up what your year was like. And at the time, the pandemic was just starting.
Yeah.
And you're talking about kind of the mood in the world at the time where, that's when we were all thanking our healthcare workers and the banging of the pots and pans in the city. You're from New York. You live in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn. Yeah.
It's really beautiful to read it from that perspective. Now, your book came out around April of this past
year?
Exactly.
So I wrote that introduction in April 2020 and it came out April 2021. And that I was finishing up the book in March. I wrote, I think the last chapter, maybe the last chapter and a half in March as everything was, and Brooklyn was like so super scary and, everything was closing down and it was terrifying. And then my editor and I were going back and forth in April. I decided to write an intro. So, but yeah, it was still very much fresh when I wrote that intro.
So a lot of people kind of came across gratitude during the pandemic, but you actually dove into this prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic arguably maybe tied it all up for you, right?
It was this interesting, absolutely. It was such a strange time to be reflecting. Not only was I finishing up the book, then of course I was proofing it and rereading it, and I'm reading about how I thanked healthcare workers for a month, and that was not trendy in 2018, and I was thinking about, my food month and having dinner parties and, neighbors I dedicated a month to. And it just, everything felt like it had this extra poignancy rereading it, just like, it's like I was teaching myself how to be grateful for these very sort of normal workaday things, and people, just a regular life, and just trying to find the magic and gratitude in it. And then all of a sudden it was so much, it was taken away, and then it really did feel like there's magic in those things,
For sure.
You really felt it when it's all taken away. Oh my God. So grateful for my friends. Haven't seen my friends, when will I see them again in person?
Yeah. Family. Going out to restaurants, things like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Still getting back to that. If for you guys to check out Gina while we're talking, her website is ginahamadey.com. And you can also find her on Instagram at gina.hamadey. So let's start from the beginning. So you're doing thank you notes. You commuted into New Jersey for your job, and you're doing thank you notes for a charity event that you had hosted, right?
Right. Every year I organize a fundraiser for City Harvest, just like an online fundraiser. Just send out a bunch of emails, send out a bunch of, just trying to raise money for City Harvest, which is, a hunger, like they, rescue food and redistribute it to soup kitchens. Great place in New York. And as part of an incentive, I offered anybody who donated a handwritten thank you note that my son would help me write as well. And he was only 4 at the time, 4.5. And he had this party trick where he would decide what your like food was, like
That's so cute.
Yeah, he would look at you and be like, you are a popsicle. I don't know. It was just, he's 4.5. He was like, that was his little party trick. So we did that for all of those people, whether he knew them or whether I pull up their picture and tell him about them. It's funny now, now he's 8.5. So it's like just funny thinking about it. But anyway, at the time,
you may need a teen journal soon.
Yeah, exactly. So we're on our way to that. So I was on a train on my way to Summit, New Jersey, where I had this, content marketing gig, and I pulled out a stack of thank you notes, and it was one thing on a long to-do list. I didn't really overthink it. I just I wasn't dreading it. It was just like one more thing I had to do. Just pulled them out and started writing them. And
was thank you note something that always kind of came easily for you?
People always ask, and people assume that I'm like one of those, because now I'm meeting them all over the place. The like real thank you note people, and like, oh, I bet your mom always made you. No, not really. I mean, it's not like I was unfamiliar with the concept. And I definitely, because I'm a writer, I'd written them over the years. Like I wrote nice ones after my wedding.
But you weren't diligent about it.
I wasn't diligent about it. I didn't grow up like constantly doing it, and I would on occasion kind of thing. And so I turned to these notes and I start writing them. And I just felt this unmistakable, peaceful, like my shoulders relaxed. It felt like my breathing slowed. And I don't even know that I was really aware of it the first day, but maybe by the second or third day, because I had a lot to write, maybe by the second or third day, I really felt this difference where I was thinking, God, why do I feel a little better getting off this train? Why do I feel a little better starting my day? Why am I feeling like I'm looking around at this cute town, Summit, New Jersey, and sort of seeing it for the first time a little bit, and like noticing the snow and the glimmer of the sun? I don't know. It just felt like that. And I made this connection to the thank you notes. I'm like, usually on that train ride, I am in my to-do list, in my feeds, in my emails, like blah, 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 blah. And this just was a different approach and a sort of a meditative feeling and a nice way to start the day. And it felt like it really had this impact on my whole day. Like it just was this nice start to the day. And so I thought about that at the end of the month when I would sort of, I had a bunch of notes to write. So I would sort of alternate those days, and I kept noticing this pattern. And when I was done with the thank you notes, I really felt like, I need to sit and think about this, because what's happening? Why was that such a big difference? Like these, just dumb little thank you notes. And I was looking at the thank you notes and thinking about how they made a difference. And I looked at my list, and there were 31 that I'd written, and it was January 31st. And I'm thinking about all of this, and the idea sort of came to me in this like neatly wrapped gift. Like, okay, well, so do it. Like, so keep it going. Like, you've written 31 already. It's January 31st. So just write a thank you note for every day of the year. And I was also in that, and I don't write a lot about this in the book, but I was sort of on the lookout for a project, because, like we talked about, I used to have these like kind of wonderfully kind of glamorous, like fun, creative jobs. And then
you traveled a lot. You ate
fine
dining. Yeah.
Like I had these magazine jobs that sort of, I don't know that they don't exist anymore, but they're much more rare and much, the pay's not good anymore and all that stuff. I was just, I had just had a baby. I was getting back into these things. I got this nice gig in New Jersey that was like pretty high paying, but I was missing a creative outlet. And so I was thinking, it's January, I'm thinking about like, intentions and resolutions. And I was on the lookout for like something, like, give me something that, okay, this job's giving me like the money that I need right now. Great. But I'm missing that thing I had at Food and Wine, this like creative spark, and where am I going to get it from? And so this just felt like an answer to that too. Like, not only did it feel really good, it felt like, you know what, this would be fun. Like maybe this is it. And maybe I'll write about it. I didn't think a book, but I
I was
felt
going to
like,
ask you, when did
the book come? Not till the end. I was like, maybe I'll like write some essays on Medium. Like maybe I'll just, or just writing the actual cards, it just felt like this could be a creative outlet. And because I came from magazines, I immediately thought of it like a content calendar, how every month was a different topic. So I had done charity and then went into neighbors for February. March was friends, and then parenting helpers, healthcare workers. I brainstormed that right away, thinking about like, okay, there'd be 12 topics. What would they be? And I started right on that train ride, that January 31st, I started writing those topics and started.
Yeah, just breaking it up into that must have been kind of challenging. You want to do 12. How do you break up your entire life really into 12 categories? But you did a great job of it.
Which is just like, I feel like when people are always, I get that question, like, how would I start? I don't want to write 365. I'm like, don't worry. Don't write all 365. No, like write 10 if you want, or write 5 if you want, or write 12, like one for every, whatever you want. But just that exercise was really interesting at that point in my life when I was feeling a little lost, like I was feeling like, definitely I was a mom. I had a, baby at home. I don't think I was still nursing him, but very freshly, like that was not that far away. And the 4.5-year-old, and I'm trying to piece together my career. And I just was feeling too busy and a little lost. And, just sitting and thinking, like, what are the 12 things that are really important to me? What do I not want to lose in this moment in my life where I'm in rush hour and triage and everything's too busy and I don't have time for anything except like what I must do at this moment. It was just like a nice thing to remember. Oh, like food is really important to me. Travel is really important to me. And like, friendship is very important to me. Like that's one of my like core values, to use a marketing term. And I don't know that I treat it like that right now. And a lot of us get like that in busy parts of our life. But anyway, just sitting and thinking about like, what are 12 topics that are important to me was like a really nice thing for myself, like a treat for myself to really kind of ask myself that question.
Yeah, I could see that, just doing that even without the thank you notes, although the thank you notes obviously brought another element to it. But I would probably break mine up similar to yours. But then, like, the thing, so each month has a different category, like she just said. And then within your categories, you kind of had subcategories, like friends. Where do you even begin? There's your childhood friends, your college friends, your friends from work, and then you have a work topic. So it really just requires so much thought. And some of the months you kind of organized ahead of time, and others you kind of didn't, right?
Well, every month was a little bit of a snowflake. So like at the outset of the month, I would, check back at that list that I made, that initial brainstorm, and just kind of be like, okay, what did I slot in for this month? And what would this look like? Because neighbors was so different from friends. Neighbors, I decided that those parameters were, okay, neighbors, who would I want to thank? How about neighbors who've done a favor for me or for a friend? And these will be short notes. I'll hand deliver them. It's all in the neighborhood. And it can be people, literal neighbors who live over there. It could be, stores, people who work at the stores. So that was that one. And then friends, I started thinking about it in the same way, like, oh, friends who've done me a favor. And just like so quickly that fell apart. Like, why would I want to, friends don't, what? Like, it just felt strange. So for that one, as you remember, I took old photographs that in shoe boxes that are sort of yellowing and starting to
Yes,
curl. And I reinforce them with mailing labels and just turn them into postcards. And I basically
such a good idea. You gave there's so many light bulb moments and tips that you give throughout the book as well, other than your story. But that was a really beautiful thing. I mean, I try to think of what it would be like to receive one of those, and you did get so many wonderful responses from people throughout the book.
Yeah. So anyway, every month just felt like I needed to sort of wrap my head around like what would be the best, like I would start writing a list, like who would these people be? And then what's that best way to thank them? Like what's the content? Like, what am I saying thank you for, and how am I saying it?
Right. And some of them were easy to write and others weren't, depending on the person. I know that you speak about a boss you had that laid you off at one point in the job section, and that one was tough, but then you ended up speaking to her and being honest about it. But there were so many beautifully poignant notes in the book. It's hard to pick just a few, but I don't want to skip to the end because the end's my favorite. But talk about, so January you did charity, and that's how you started. Then February you did your neighbors. March is your friends, and there's a line you put in the friends section that I loved. In fact, I told Arlene about it before we started the challenge. It is, where is it? Long lost friends aren't always lost. I love that. And explain what you meant by that.
What I meant was there, so in these pictures, I got a stack and I brought that stack on the train with me. And there were a few of those picture postcards that I just kept shuffling to the back because I just was like not ready to write them yet. Yeah. And the easy ones were easy and wonderful and lovely. And it's, writing to friends I grew up with that, maybe I haven't seen in a year or two, but we're still in touch and there's a lot of love and it's easy.
Right.
And then there were 3 or 4 that I just, there was some estrangement or there was some weirdness or, just hadn't, it was it was like those tough relationships. Yeah. And I kept asking myself, like, is this the right thing to do? Like, why am I doing it? Like, is it because I need to get to 30? Like, is that the only reason? Or like, is that a good reason? No, that's not the only reason. There's a reason why I still love this person, right? That's why they're in the stack. If it was animosity, I wouldn't have picked it up.
Right.
But there's some complication there. And is this the best way to reach out? Is this going to feel glib? Is it, like, it's only a postcard. I don't have time to say much. I'm not going to get into it. Right. I'm not going to say like, what happened?
Right.
So I don't know, but I did send all 4 of those and I wasn't, I think when you read them, you can tell there's a little melancholy or there's a little something. Like it was sort of like, I'm trying to remember a quote off the top of my head, but I remember one was like, because of life's busyness and there's something like that. I know we haven't seen each other, but like that kind of thing.
And how many people don't have those kind of relationships in their lives? I would venture to guess we all do. And, it made me a little uncomfortable because I was thinking of people that I should probably but I would probably like to do that with, because after some of the responses you got from people and saying your lost friends may not really be lost. Maybe it just requires an initial outreach of some kind, because you made people's day a lot with your notes.
I did hear, that was the phrase I did hear the most, which is a really nice thing to hear a lot.
Yeah.
It's like a really nice thing to hear. But I have to, so those 4, I did, each one of those responded in such a nice way and really made me feel like it was the right decision to reach out. And in fact, one of them, the one that I really was like legitimately estranged from and really had very complicated sort of negative feelings about the way our friendship, I felt like, ended or paused or whatever it was, that had the biggest impact. She and we just traded videos today. We trade videos back and forth, but just today we were trading videos back and forth. it really got us back in touch. And for the book, I
That's right.
interviewed her about it because I had all these questions, like, I don't know, just like why this opened a door for us to repair our relationship, but how would it have been different if I had just picked up the phone and called you or emailed you? Like,
Yeah.
what was different about this? Or was it different? And she had such a nice way of explaining it, which was that it's a slow mode of communication, which
Yeah.
allows for a slow response,
True. That's a good point. I didn't think of the response part of it. It enables her to think, and the whole thing is it's very mindful.
Right.
The process of writing, that when you receive a note, that person is thinking only of you. You
Right.
were only thinking of that person. Then to receive it, it's just so special. And then she could think
Right.
about how she wanted to respond, right?
Exactly. Yeah. She really talked me through her whole thought process where, she got the postcard in the mail and it was from my bachelorette party actually. And we both are like wearing crowns. I don't know. We were downtown, Lower East Side, and we both looked great and young and beautiful and happy. And she said that she saw it in her stack of like bills. And she was like, what is this magical object? Like, what is this? And she's also an artist. And so she described, I am not an artist, but it's tactile, right? Like the picture in this. And she said, you could really see the mark of the hand was like, I guess that's a phrase that they use in art, the mark of the hand, in a painting or whatever it is. And she said, you could see that, which was touching to me, that I could see your handiwork there, And then she said, God, I really, and then her thought process is like, first it's like, oh, I remember this, and the nostalgia and the warmth. And then it's like, God, I really messed that up, that relationship. And, like, I don't think she'd want to hear from me. And then like, wait a beat, maybe wait a few hours. I don't know. But she must want to hear from me because she sent that. You know what I mean? It's like she's having this like slow talk with herself about these complicated things, and it's different if you send an email that has a timestamp, right? Because then it's like TikTok, right?
True, yeah.
Right. So,
and although emails can be nice, this is much more, like I said, mindful, I guess. It's just, it really requires work. Not only you're actually writing it, but taking the time to make the card. The whole thing just required so much thought, which must have made her, feel so beautiful.
Right. So that was the Friends Month.
Were there any responses throughout the year that, what surprised you? Like, what kind of responses or non-responses did surprise you? Did anybody respond that you didn't think would?
When the thing that comes to mind as far as a surprise, I always preface this when I talk about the responses. I always say, I really was very specific at the beginning of this year that I would not keep track of the responses, and I was really good about that.
I like it. You said that something about don't expect anything or no expectations.
Yeah, I wrote in my journal, give everything, expect nothing.
Right,
and it was like a really healthy, I think, way to go about it because, excuse me, and obviously it's harder if you only send two, like maybe, you're just like naturally waiting maybe for those two. But because I was sending so many, I just knew like not everybody would get back to me, or like not everybody would get back to me in a timely way, or like, so I felt like I will give these out and never follow up and never worry and never fret about like, oh God, did I make it weird? I'm just like, I will give it away, and anything that comes back is a gift to me, and I can't second guess anything. And just I'm on a little bit of a tangent, but I like just to like, sort of dig into, I think, why that was a good idea. One of my mentors, somebody I thanked in my Career Mentors Month, she actually helped me on one of the, I gave her some money to like read the manuscript and give me your notes. I think she's just such a smart editor. So I was like, please do this for me. I want, I just feel like her eye was, I just wanted that, her eye, which is just so sharp. Anyway, she, at the end of the book, kind of like sent me this like panicked email where she's like, I know I never responded to the thank you note that I got. I want you to know that it really meant a lot to me. It's just like, it brought up these feelings of like not being appreciated for like the talent I have and like not being paid enough for it. And like, she's going on and on.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
like, yeah. And I'm like, I honestly didn't know that you didn't respond because I was like that good
Yeah.
at following my own directions, which is like, don't overthink this. Like I'm already going to overthink it because it takes some bravery to be like, I will tell everybody everything that I love about them with like,
The
like
whole thing is incredibly brave.
yeah,
I mean, every month, the people you picked, it was beautiful, but I told you, it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable because I was envisioning myself doing it. And I actually would love to after reading your book. It really was inspiring in that way. But I'm like, I'm like, this girl is badass with what you wrote, and you didn't have to get into nitty gritty detail, and you didn't get into this, and this happened, and why did you didn't, but still, it's very brave, very vulnerable.
yeah. So like, I knew that I would pile on to that if I was then second guessing and saying like, oh, but why didn't she respond? And like, it's like there's already that leap of faith where it's like, I'm just going to push this out there and feel like it's going to be a good thing. And any little fear I have that it's going to be weird or awkward or like all those things, I'm going to let go of it and I'm just going to give it away. And that when Susan, that woman, when she sort of admitted that to me, that like, oh, I would have, but then I didn't. And this is why. And she's like going on and on. I'm like, this is exactly why because everybody's got their own reasons and everybody, like has their own, like, oh, then I waited too long and now I feel guilty. Like everybody's got that thing. So I'm just not going to worry about anybody else's reply. Anyway, that's a long tangent to come back to the replies that I got that were surprising, that I heard. So I got a lot of "this made my day," and that was wonderful. And I started like that was just like a constant, something I was hearing constantly, which is like, what a lovely thing that to be, like what a lovely phrase to just like be peppered throughout your life for a year,
For sure. I mean, probably more than just their day too. It made their week, their month, year. I
Yeah.
think one of your friends said that.
Yeah.
It just to know that somebody thinks about you enough to do that is just such a gift.
Yeah. So that was something I heard a lot, but something that I heard quite a bit, like at least half a dozen times, which really surprised me, was like these admissions of, I'm going through, and this is 2018, pre-pandemic, I'm going through a really hard time right now, and this helped. Like some variation on that, I heard quite a bit. And it's like, I'm hearing that from some people who I know well, and I just didn't know about that hard time. Some people, former, mentors or people who I used to work with. And now of course, magazines, like everybody's, whatever, everybody's going through a career crisis. So a lot of those, somebody who I'm really thinking of, she was a chef at this restaurant that is no longer around, but it was our favorite restaurant for years. And, like we were in touch, sort of, we know each other. She moved upstate, we think well of each other, but haven't seen each other in years. And she just wrote this long response about, opening up about how she had Lyme disease and, like was questioning, I don't know, everything. She was just in this really dark place in her life and felt like she wasted her 20s being a chef at this restaurant that's no longer there. And she was like going through this whole thing. And she, was like getting your letter, like remembering what it was like to have these regulars come in and what it meant for them to have this place that they loved and what it meant for me to like watch them. I didn't feel so much like I wasted my life. Like it reminded me that this was like a real,
valuable.
It was valuable that she was, it's like once it's over, she was kind of thinking about the ending or thinking about whatever happened with her partner or like however messy it got. And she was just remembering some of the details you brought up, like reminded me how good that felt to be in that room with you and with all those people. And
enough to warrant a note out of the blue from a former customer. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And obviously you made her feel safe enough where she could share all that with you too.
Yeah. And see, that's the flip side of that coin of like, I'm so afraid to share these things, it takes that bravery. And the flip side of that is that lets other person's guard down, and then they can, do the same. Like they feel comfortable then. They're like, oh, well, this girl's not too cool. Like she just was kind of like, oh my God, I think about you constantly. I haven't seen you in 10 years. Like, okay, this is somebody I could probably open up to because she's just showed me all her cards,
With that connection, I feel strongly about connection and having us all heal together, because we all go through struggles, but you bridge that connection with people, every single day, every single month, and you made her feel safe enough to open up to you. It's a beautiful thing. The book again is I Want to Thank You. And if you'd like to win an autographed copy tonight, put in #gratitude and we'll draw at the end of the episode. So let's take a couple comments here. I saw one I have to get to or I'll get in trouble. My dad, watching from Georgia with Gary, Joe, and Donna. Hi, Dad. Gary, Joe, and Donna. Hello.
Proud Dad. Cute.
Jennifer Marlowe, happy Gratitude Month. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you.
Heidi's here. My mom said that she would rather I write to her than call her because a letter is forever and she can reread it. Beautiful. Beautiful. That's the other thing. They're keepsakes. And I was going to save this for the end, but I want to share it now. So you, on your Instagram account, you put something out. I think it was yesterday. Let me get this off. You took pictures of your thank you notes.
Yeah, I did.
And I want to share a picture of what you did because it's super cool.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just, where did I put those? I actually can show you. Right.
So you bound them in these, you sent them away to this company called Chatbooks, right?
Yeah. And and like anything works. Chatbooks is a nice one, but yeah, any of those work. And the nice thing about it, and I mean, honestly, the reason why I started, documenting this is because I'm a writer and I'm like, oh, what if I write an essay for Medium or whatever? I'll want to remember what I wrote. But, that was sort of the reason why I did it. But what became wonderful about the fact that I did that, I'm so grateful that I did that because, now it's just like this account of the year in this way that's just like this purely positive thing to like look back on. And if I'm ever feeling like alone in the world, it's like looking back at these people who, did something for me or like made this difference, and the details I used, you'd think I'd remember them, but I don't. Like I look back and I'm like, oh God, right.
So, it's funny. I think I told you when we first met. So I did a gratitude project myself in 2016, similar to yours, although mine was on Facebook. Mm-hmm. So, it kind of evolved the same way yours did. I started off the year 2016 and I just started, I'm a big gratitude addict actually. So I was sharing stuff on my personal page, and then it got to be like maybe the 15th of January and I realized I had been posting something every day, kind of unintentionally. So then I decided that I was going to make it a year-long project. So I did 366 entries every day for the year on my personal Facebook page. I call it my gratitude project. And this year, because it's the 5-year anniversary, I've been sharing them every day, like 5 years ago today on the gratitude project. And there's so much that I don't remember, but it's a really cool account. Like you say this book, it's a really cool account of remembering these things. And I made them things that weren't of material value, but things such as, shelter or I forget what today was. The other day was the right to vote, like things like that you really have to think outside the box and really dig deep to find the gratitude. And much like your project, it was a profound experience in my life that kind of changed everything for me. But it was super cool to have that account on Facebook of all these things. So I love that you bound that book. That's super cool. And then do people tell you that they took picture or they saved their notes? I assume most of them did, especially the ones with the pictures.
Yeah. I asked my friend Grace, who I sent a couple. She was in my travel month. She was in my friend month. So she got a few of them. And I asked her once, I think it was before my first podcast interview, even before I wrote the book or even had the book deal. It was like at the end of that year. And they had sent me a bunch of questions. And one was like, what do the people do when they get them? Or like, I don't know, something like that. Or like, what's the difference between getting, something in the mail and just getting an email? And she kind of talked me through a card that I sent her where she said, she got it in the mail, and she like takes care of her mom who has some sort of dementia, something or other. She has 3 kids. She has 2 dogs. I mean, she's overworked and overrun. And she's a cancer survivor. There's always a chance, so she's just had so much going on. And we studied abroad in Florence together, and we had like the most wonderful, like carefree, 6 months ever, just like traveling Italy together and having so much fun. And she said that she got the note and put it on her kitchen table and left it there for a week. And she said every time she walked by it, she would kind of like smile every time she saw it. And then after a week or two, maybe it migrated to her fridge for a week or two or something. And then she put it in her little memory box, and it's like there. And she, if she sees my name pop up, she kind of like thinks about it and smiles. So it's like, it's an object,
You can't throw something like that away. You just can't.
And even if you do, like, even if you're a Marie Kondo, like nothing, like even if you're ruthless about that.
Right. You wrote to Marie Kondo, didn't she? She was one of your authors.
Like even if you're ruthless about that, and I respect that, it's still, it still was in your hand. Do you know what I mean? So it's tangible. So even if you did toss it, like it's more memorable because it was in your hand.
For sure. Arlene says, we're in our 2nd week in the journaling club. Family is this week, and I'm writing every day. The feelings are so great.
Yay. Oh, I'm wondering, like, family is it mostly like immediate family that you live with, or is it like all over male?
Yeah, you guys who are doing the challenge, weigh in with how it's going. I'm working on another book, so I haven't unfortunately been able to do the challenge in my own group. But I did weigh in the other day and say that family, I think, can be super tricky because you love them the most. They also have the biggest capacity to hurt you, right? So families are sticky. And so maybe even, I don't know how you feel about it, but maybe even more so than friends, it could be really kind of sticky navigating family, I would imagine.
I mean, like, when we were talking about, I feel like some of the hardest notes I had to write were the most important and the most interesting and the biggest, just the most helpful for me, or like the most therapeutic, like that friend that we got back in touch, the boss who laid me off, and and family I'll put in there too. Like I have a sort of complicated relationship with both of my parents, and I love them both, and we're not estranged or anything like that. And people have worse relationships, but there's just some complications there. And I remember once at the end of a weekend with my dad where he was here, and just ended badly. I don't know. He sort of had like a temper tantrum at the end. And I don't know, he said something mean to my kids sort of. And I was just like, just like left. And I'm like, okay, let's take a break. We can just.
Yeah, you shared a story about your mom. You had a sticky, like a Mother's Day brunch or something, right? And then
yes, and I wrote about something similar for my mom, where she was like driving me crazy. And like for both of those, I felt like for both my parents, I feel like at certain points I used thank you notes to, like, I don't know, to sort of like, for my dad, I was like pissed off at him for the end of this trip. And then I, like, a few days later, I was like, let me see what happens if I just like sit here with a note. Like, I don't have to write it, but like, what if I just think about writing it? What would I write? And then I'm kind of like, this is what this is the gratitude thing. This is like, it's magic, right? Where I'm like, okay, I can still be pissed about that end thing, but like, it doesn't erase, okay, he did come out here. He did, like he did stuff, right? He was present with my kids and like played with them and whatever. And he did treat us to this like lovely dinner. And like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't, because he had this tantrum at the end of the weekend, doesn't erase and eradicate the good stuff. So like, I can write to him about the good stuff and send it.
Right.
And I can.
And make yourself feel better in the process.
And make myself feel better in the process. Yeah. And it's not, and this is where we like get into those waters of like, that doesn't mean that I am ignoring the bad stuff. And it doesn't mean that it's like erases it. And it doesn't mean that I'm like, hooray, everything's great because I say it's great. Like, I'm not saying that. And you can still be like pissed and angry and like upset and all those things. But I'm like, I can also be grateful. Like I can do both. Like I can both live together.
What we do in Attitude of Gratitude with chronic pain, we're not ignoring the fact that we live with chronic pain, and we're not brushing it under the rug either. We're just choosing to walk through it with eyes open to gratitude versus stewing in the problem. Because, there's two ways you could do it. I've tried the other way. It didn't work out so well for me. So we're, walking with gratitude, it doesn't erase anything. It doesn't take away the pain or the bad memories or anything like that, but it will give you peace of mind and the ability to move forward, right?
Yeah, it's helpful. It's helpful.
Yep. Let's talk about, so you obviously wrote to many people who you know personally, but there were also many people, authors of books that you loved, people like, that you work for, the Oprah Magazine, like talk about some of those people and what the process was.
Yeah, I wrote some fan mail. Definitely my author month was almost 100% fan mail.
Yeah.
And, that was in October. So, almost the end of the year. And I remember starting that month and being like, oh God, I don't know if I should have done this at this time in the year, because now I'm used to like all these like life-changing, like big, like grand crescendo kind of thank you notes that are.
And now
like,
this is gonna be met with crickets most likely, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, what, like, should I change this? Or I don't know, but I'm like, let me just see what happens. And maybe it'll just sort of be a boring month and maybe I'll just deal with that or whatever. And it actually was so wonderful and lovely and like really one of the most feel-good months. And the month where I wrote sort of the longest ones, a lot of these notes for me was it like 3 or 4 sentences was perfect. Like, I don't think you need to go on and on and on. Like if there's something you're writing about that's specific, it's like, you just write it in a, nice specific detail with like, and we can go over tips later, but like a lot of these were short. A lot of these were like on a card, sometimes just one side of the card, like just short.
J.K. Rowling.
But for J.K. Rowling, I wrote this like long thing with like a timeline of like all the ways that she had like in different points that I felt like those books had sort of, been a balm for me.
And so you wrote these knowing, with that one in particular, you knew that she would probably never see it.
Yeah. It was just, that was like my light bulb where I'm like, oh, I'm writing these for me. Like I'm writing these for me. And what it's doing for me is reminding me that, and especially right now at the time in 2018, when I have these 2 little kids and everything's crazy and I have no time for anything, I'm reminding myself that I'm a reader. Like that is part of my identity. And it's where I feel very much myself when I'm reading. And so I'm going to go back and think about these 30 books that I loved. And
that must have been difficult for you to narrow that down. I mean, you're a writer and you love books so much, to pick 30 books that really.
I really try not to overthink it, because I am such an overthinker by nature. And I'm like, don't do it. Just sort of start writing. I was sort of like, what have I read recently? What did I love recently? They got to be alive. It wasn't like my 30 favorite authors of all time. It was like,
you chose books. You were going to do that, right? And then you said, rather than the author, let's just do books.
Let's just do books. Like, let me just, and like, what are some I read recently? And like, which ones did I read this year? And what are coming top of mind? If I look at my shelf, what's popping out? Like, let me just not overthink it and make it like a thing of like, and then I can rank them. Like we could really go crazy. So,
now your son wrote a thank you note to one of his favorite authors and got a response, right?
Yes, he wrote to 11 of his authors, which was so nice for us. It was
Gina's, I read the book regular and also on Audible. That's how much I love this book. And Gina's reading her own book, which I told her before the episode, just makes it super special. When you read that chapter about your son writing the note and what he said, and then the response, I was cracking up. Tears are coming down my face. It was brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was so special for us because, first of all, I really tried throughout the year to bring Henry. Charlie was only 1.5 years, but Henry, I really tried to bring him into this process as much as I could. So when I was doing authors, we're obviously always reading picture books. So that felt like a natural place to bring him in. And it was so special to like, to just look at our shelves and pick the ones that we'd want to read, to write thank you notes to. And a big thing, I talked to like this guy who co-wrote this book, Making Grateful Kids. And this is like the big...
Giacomo.
Yeah, Giacomo. Yeah. This is the big thing that kids have to know, which is like, it's maybe obvious, but just this is what they need help with, right? There are people behind the stuff I love. It's like that connection. There are people behind the stuff I love. I love video games. I love these books. Oh, people made them. People created them. And like that is a connection that kids need help making. And so to just pull the books off and say like, oh God, yeah, this is the book we love to read and it's so funny and you always laugh. Okay, Dev Petty, her name's Dev Petty. She wrote it. Let's like look where she lives and like, oh, this is her picture and let's write to her, tell her why you love it, what you like about it. And it's like, oh God, somebody wrote this book. It's like he's getting it then when you really do that process, instead of just saying somebody wrote it. It's like to really like think about it and to write to that person.
Yeah.
Just underline.
Such a good lesson for kids. And you talk quite a bit about teaching your kids to be grateful, which is fantastic. And, with writing the gratitude journal for teen boys, it was a challenge for me. My kids are in their 20s. My son was a teenager at one point. He's no longer. But it was definitely challenging to try to think how in just a short minute, 5 minutes a day, it's supposed to be all it take. What kind of prompts can I give these teen boys that will help them to think? Like one of the days is, what did somebody sacrifice for me today? Things like that, because I don't think naturally they think like that, kids. And then teens. It's a beautiful thing to instill in our children, I think.
Yeah.
So tell us what the author wrote back to him.
Yeah, he got responses from at least 2, maybe 3 or 4, but 2 were like very memorable. So Dev Petty, this woman who wrote I Don't Want to Be a Frog, which now my younger one loves it. She wrote back this like handwritten lovely note about like how she is happy that he liked the pig character, and that's one of her favorites too. And that she likes the frog because he's asking big questions. And anyway, it's like, it was this personal note, and she included some bookmarks and
you said when you were reading it to him, he was completely engrossed. I think you said he stopped fidgeting for once in his life.
Yeah.
So sweet. But it's so sweet.
And then the writer who wrote The Kissing Hand, which is, quite a well-known book. It's about a raccoon who kisses her child in the center of his palm before going to school, and he like keeps that kiss close. She wrote back this type wrote a note, or maybe, I don't know, printed and whatever, the whole story behind the origin of it, that raccoons really do this, that they kiss each other on the palm of the hand. And she saw it on a train that stopped, and she picked up that he mentioned he has a little brother in his note. And so she sent a picture, she sent a book of like a follow-up book about a brother relationship. And so it was, so nice. And he was like gobsmacked about this.
I bet. Yeah. I bet. So December, that's the big month. So it was on love, and you decided to write your husband a note every day for that entire month.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was so interesting. And so this is the one that I mentioned to you I mentioned this to you before we jumped on, but this is like the month that is triggering for people. And like when I was doing it, I, was out and about. I remember going to karaoke with my husband and his work friends, and they're like, I hear you're writing Jake a note every day of the month. Wow. Like, why doesn't my wife do that for me? Or like, I don't know. It's just like people get, so it's interesting.
It's almost like, where do you even begin?
Yeah.
Like 31s or 31's a lot, but it's also not enough either, at the same time.
Right. First of all, because I knew that was coming up at the end of the year, he was turning 40 in that month. So it was like a present for him. And because I knew that early on in the year, I did sort of like write notes in my little notes app on my phone, just like, maybe I'll need some help with that. So like throughout the year, I had maybe, I don't know, 6 or 8 or 10 notes where I'm like, oh, on this date, he did this, that was sweet, or whatever. So like I had that to draw from, but mostly I was just writing about stuff that happened that day. And mostly it was very simple, but I tried to sort of be a little bit thoughtful about it, where, one day I was talking about how he, like played nice classical music in the morning and the kids sort of calmed down. And I was like, I never think about music. Like you're the one that thinks about music. I honestly don't even know how to play music in our house. Like you're the one that does that entirely. And like, you're so good at it. And like, you know, the music I love and you play that, and you know, the music that'll like calm our kids down and you play that. And I don't even think about that. And,
So it kind of forced you to open your eyes a little bit more and recognize things that you knew you were grateful for, but you never really probably thought about it all that
right,
much, right? Yeah.
right. And, you know, I heard Adam Grant on a podcast talking about this, and this really spoke to me, where he was talking about how, you know, when you have kids, especially young kids, especially, there's just too much to do, and there's lots of friction, no
Yep.
matter what, like no matter
Yep.
what kind of relationship you have, which my husband and I have been together for more than 20 years. Like we were college sweethearts. We have a, like really, I no complaints. Like we have a wonderful relationship, but there's just too much to do in the house and you're both doing too much. And, you know, Adam Grant was like, this sounds so stupid, but like, you only know the stuff that you do because you're yourself, and the other person is you know what I mean? Like you're not logging everything they're doing because you're with yourself. So you only know about the dishes you're washing, and you know what I mean? Like, so you feel it in yourself because you're doing it, and the other person is doing all this other stuff that you're just not tracking. And like,
I think that's why I was so uncomfortable, because Rob, my husband, does so much, way more than I do. He may argue. I don't think he'd argue. No, he does do way more. And it's just like, I owe him, 30 years worth of these. And the other day, I actually was, after reading your book, I went up, he works upstairs, and I kissed him, and he said, "What's that for?" And I'm like, "I'm just so grateful for you." And that's because of your book, actually.
that's nice.
And he was, not that I don't express my love for him, I do, but it was kind of out of the blue, because it really kind of forced me, like, oh my gosh, I've got him to thank for this, that, and Jake, you said in the beginning, he kind of saw the note on his pillow, right? And then they just started coming every day. Did you know that you were going to do it every day in the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had planned that out, and he just didn't know it. And then like 3 or 4 days in, he's like, "What's going on?" Why do I keep getting, oh my God, oh, it's for this month is mine. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know, and then he was giving it back to me in his own way and being more verbal. And I really think it showed us a new way of talking to each other. And we really try to keep it up, where it's like, you know, "Oh, thank you for unloading those dishes." Like, never mind, I did that this morning. Like, it's, of course, I did that this morning. Fine. But like, you did it now and I didn't. So like, thank you for that, you know? And then when I do it tomorrow morning, he'll thank me for that. It's like, it's just nice. It's just nice. Like,
It is. It's nice to be seen and valued, isn't it? And to
Yeah.
know, to hear that we assume, I think we assume that the other person just knows,
Right.
but it's awfully nice to hear it sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the beginning of each month, first of all, I keep forgetting to mention, this book is hilarious too. Your sense of humor is right. That's why we're best friends, because I love your sense of humor.
Oh, well, that's the way
also,
that my heart is telling me I'm funny. So thank you.
the beginning of each chapter, like February, for instance, you've got neighbors, and the beginning of each chapter, you've got a lesson, a surprise, and a benefit that you learn from each month. So for February, your lesson was that low stakes relationships can be high impact. The surprise was big little favors are happening right now. And the benefit is expressing gratitude forges a deeper connection to the community. So you have something different for each month, which is really beautiful too. I Want to Thank You is the name of the book. You can get it anywhere books are sold. On Amazon, the link is in the description of the broadcast here. I can't believe we're at an hour already, but we are.
No, that's so fast.
It always goes so fast. I knew you'd go fast. I'm sorry for those of you whose comments I didn't get to. I knew that Gina would have so much to share with us. Hi, Gary. Thank you. You're the best too. Thanks for being here. So get your hashtag gratitude. We'll do a drawing for signed copy of the book. While I'm doing that, Gina, what kind of tips do you have for those of us that aren't well versed in writing thank you? When I think of writing thank you notes, I think of my mom making me after birthday parties and Christmas, and it gives me like hives to think about. As much as I love gratitude, thank you notes. So what are some tips that you have for people?
Yeah. So first of all, when I talk about this, it's funny. I just popped into this book club last night, and they were talking, somebody was like, like somebody was talking about thank you notes and a whole stack they were supposed to write, and it's like on their list. And I'm like, I know this is controversial coming from me. Like, don't write them. I don't know. They're so boring. Like those notes about presents, I can't, they're just so boring. Like I would sort of save your stationery for something more interesting. I don't know. I mean, not to say that I hate them or they're bad. It's just, if you're feeling like that about it, if you're feeling like this is a drag and I'm dreading it, don't do it. Like, I don't know. What I'm generally talking about when I'm talking about gratitude notes is thank you for something you did, or thank you for something you said, not thank you for something you gave me. And if you are thanking somebody for something that they gave you, it's nice to sort of, I don't know, go a little deeper. And
because that's kind of like it's an I owe you type thing versus just a general gratitude, right?
I feel like it's a holdover from the days of yore when you couldn't just text somebody and said, I got your sweater and it arrived safely,
Yeah.
you know, like, and here's a picture of me in it. And like, I feel like that's great, you know, like that's perfect. You know, you gave my son this for his birthday. He's loving it. And you send a picture and it takes you 1 second and they get that feeling great. Like, I think that's honestly great. So I'm not gonna, there are those people out there, and like your mother might be one of them, that is like, you have to send all the thank you notes for the birthday presents. Like that's not me actually. Even though people think it's me. So, but when it comes to, if you have a note of gratitude to write, whether that's to like, you know, an oncologist who saved your mother's life, or whether that's a career mentor that, like, if you read that chapter and you're like, oh God, I have some career mentors I haven't talked to in a while. Like I would love to reach out to them.
That chapter was great too. I wish we had another hour. But that chapter where you're talking about people that pushed you along in your career was really beautiful too.
That was the one that I'm like, why isn't everybody doing this? Like, you know, like some of these are sort of like random and like this exercise for me that I got so much out of it. But the career mentors, I'm like, everybody should be doing this. Like,
and you talk about it being a really great networking thing too.
So great. It was so great. And everybody just was like so generous and like came out of the woodwork, and like, you know, lots of sushi lunches and stuff. Anyway. So what I would say as far as writing these is, people get caught up in the wrong things. People get caught up in their handwriting. I hear that so much. I mean, like if you see my handwriting, let me show you, like my handwriting is pretty terrible, like pretty bad. I mean, I can do, if I'm like trying.
But the thing is, it's yours, isn't it?
But it's mine.
It's
so
yours.
It's
even though you can't stand it, other people like it. It means something to them.
You know what? I like it. I like my bad handwriting because it's mine and it's personal, and it's like
it's your fingerprint
there. Yeah. Anyway, so people get caught up in the handwriting. They get caught up in like, oh, I don't feel like confident as a writer. Like, I don't think I like have something beautiful to say or something. Like, they're just like, oh, you're a writer, so it must be easier for you. I'm like, I think if you're thinking about writing, you're getting in your own way. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you're trying to write, it's probably not good. Like, what I think is good writing is just like, so my process is like, you sit and you turn off no podcasts, like just for 2 minutes or a minute and a half, just think about the person and what you want to say. Just like think about it before you even start writing, just for a minute. Just like, okay, that career mentor, like, yeah, that's the thing I really think of. She said that one thing and I always think about it. She said that one thing and I think about it always. Yeah. And she gave me confidence in that way too. Okay. All right. That's what I think about her. And then you just sit and you write and you write those details and you write from the heart, and you don't be afraid to like say the thing that's really there, and you offer your perspective on this shared experience. That's what I feel like you have to offer, right? Is like, everybody wants to read something. Everyone wants to learn something new. Like, that's why you open the newspaper. Right. That's why you open a book. Like, you just want to learn something that you didn't know before. And you actually can do that, because even if you're writing about a shared experience, that person doesn't know your, feelings at the time. Like, they might know that you went to Hawaii and you appreciate that your mom bought you the trip to Hawaii, but they don't know that, like, oh, the thing you always think about, or like the thing you remember, or like the moment that, your perspective, like they don't necessarily know that. So you share that in details over cliches, just like share those details. Does not have to be long. 3 sentences can be perfect.
Powerful. 3 powerful sentences.
Yeah. And just like, don't be afraid to speak from the heart. If you're like, don't water it down. Just like say what's really on your mind. this is why it meant a lot to me. This is how I felt at the time. And this is why it continues to mean something to me.
Well, it's a beautiful book. It meant a lot to me. And hopefully a lot of other people too. Thank you so much for being here. Let's give away a book real quick. Let's see who's gonna win.
Ooh,
I Want to Thank You by Gina Hamadey.
What is it? Oh,
Joseph, congratulations. Yay. DM me your address. We'll get that copy out to you. Congratulations. Gina, thank you so much for being here. It was a real pleasure. I'd love to have you back sometime. Congratulations on the book. It's a beautiful book, and it's such a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
And for all of you who were here live, thank you for joining us. If you're watching the replay, welcome. And all the links that you saw today will be in the description. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks again, Gina. Happy Thanksgiving.
Such a pleasure for me. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Peace and love, gang. Take care. See you next week.
Bye.